Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a sleep physician, sleep coach, and host of this Insomnia Insight channel. If you have vivid dreams, this episode is for you. We're going to see that the culprit, as so often, is hyperarousal. And we're going to look at 4 ways you can get past hyperarousal and sleep amazingly well. Welcome back. Super excited having you here. And I want to thank Jay for suggesting today's topic, vivid dreams. It's one of those, like, I can't believe I actually have not spoken about this in the past. Before we get to those vivid dreams, I want to spend a few seconds on dreams in general. When I see people in clinic, a lot of people do complain about having very frightful dreams, nightmares, and where the content of their dreams is very troubling. That is almost always due to past trauma, depression, and mental wellness problems like that. So that's kind of a separate issue from what we're talking about today. Nightmares is a separate issue. Also, I want to mention that when on the topic of dreams, that dreams can kind of go both ways in terms of sleep quality. Meaning, I see a lot of patients who have obstructive sleep apnea, sleep very poorly, and start treating that sleep apnea with CPAP, and then say, I'm finally dreaming again, which indicates that the absence of dreams can be a sign of not good sleep. But on the flip side, a lot of people also have very, very active sleep, tossing and turning, insomnia type symptoms, like, a lot of dreaming, like superficial sleep, etc. And then when they're, getting better quality sleep, say, oh, I don't have all those, annoying dreams anymore. So dreams can go both ways. And sometimes people look to their dreams, the absence or presence of them, as a marker of sleep quality, which is not often that helpful. I think the best way of telling if you're sleeping well or not is how you feel. If you feel refreshed, you're sleeping well. If you're not feeling refreshed and there's no obvious issue with your sleep, you're not snoring loudly, you don't have insomnia type issues going on, then probably sleep is not the culprit. We've seen many times that when people are just not refreshed and think sleep is the culprit and try to improve their sleep, they go down that particular rabbit hole. So, okay, that was just some general, general comments, thoughts that I thought would be helpful. Now let's move into today's topic, really focusing on the topic, which is vivid dreams. And when I would talk about vivid dreams here, this is in the context of insomnia. This is somebody who describes something to this effect. I'm almost not sure if I sleep at all. I'm constantly in this kind of mixed state between superficial sleep and wakefulness. The whole night seems like a long dream, very vivid one. So the entire night almost feels like just dreaming mixed with wakefulness. Not sure if you're awake or you're asleep or what's going on. And the dream content seems very real and very vivid. That is the type of vivid dreaming I want to talk about here. It's often very frightful. A lot of people that have this type of vivid dreams scenario are concerned about the nature of their sleep. With insomnia, there's always a concern that I'm not getting enough sleep, I wake up a lot. But when you have vivid dreams, oftentimes you think there's something wrong with my sleep stages. I'm in this, there's something wrong with like the type of sleep I have, which there isn't. That is not the case. In fact, the culprit, as so often when it comes to trouble sleeping, is hyperarousal. And what is that? Well, that is when you are in your emotional state is heightened. And this could be when you're nervous, you're worried, you're preoccupied, you're anxious, you're stressed, or you're excited. Excitement too can lead to a lot of vivid dreams. I think a lot of people will recognize that when you have an important event in the morning, and maybe early, you have to get up earlier than you usually do, you're kind of hyper alert, hyper aroused, and you wake up many times. Oh, it's only 3 a.m. Okay, you wake up and oh, it's 3:27. Okay, and you often remember a lot of those dreams, so that you can have that tendency towards vivid dreams just by having excitement, actually something positive happening. But again, hyperarousal is the culprit. And why is that? Well, I think primarily because it fragments your sleep. when you are not preoccupied, worried, stressed, etc., when you don't have that much hyperarousal, when you're calm and you're not thinking about your sleep and you sleep well, you have solid sleep, you may have pleasant dreams or no dreams. You don't have that problem with vivid dreams. But when you're in that heightened state of alertness, not only do you have more sleep fragmentation, you wake up more often, your sleep is more superficial, and when you're hyperaroused, everything is emphasized, even like physical, feelings like feeling pain or tingling or like things like that are emphasized. Those feel really strong. Tinnitus is as something you really notice when you're hyperaroused. The same thing with your dreams. Even though the dream content is not that remarkable, it just feels more intense and vivid when you're hyper-aroused. So again, hyperarousal is the culprit when it comes to these vivid dreams. Now, to many of you, that's probably not a surprise, and as often you may think, okay, how can I decrease that hyperarousal? And here's the big insight here is you cannot apply a kind of direct attack approach on hyperarousal. If you do anything with a specific intent or purpose of becoming less hyperaroused, you're just bringing attention to the problem and it becomes worse. That's classic example is like, I'm so stressed, I'm going to do meditation to become less stressed. You're meditating and like, okay, how do I feel? I'm still not stressed. I have to go on 20 minutes more. No, it's not working. I have to do 4 more. It's not working. I'm more stressed, etc. That does not work. It's kind of like sleep itself. If you do something with the intent or purpose of making yourself sleep, you produce more insomnia. So what can you do? Well, I think probably the most effective thing when it comes to hyperarousal is education, awareness, understanding. When someone starts understanding why they have trouble sleeping, for example, that reduces a lot of that anxiety and hyperarousal. It's like anything else. When there's ambiguity, you don't understand it, it's novel, it's strange, it's unusual, that produces so much hyperarousal. When you start understanding something, it goes down. So education is number one. And even when it comes to vivid dreams, by them, just understanding that there's nothing wrong in your sleep system, your brain system, anything like that produces vivid dreams, that in itself is very important. So education, I think, is number one. Number two is a harder one, and that's the quantum leap. That's the quantum leap. That is when you go from, having these vivid dreams, being hyperaroused, and then just kind of like completely switching your focus, being like, okay, you know what? I'm going to ignore this whole thing. I'm just going to focus on something I enjoy, like playing the trombone or learning how to, do synchronized diving, and completely shift focus and thereby like, not paying attention to sleep, to vivid dreams, and that can reduce hyperarousal. But it's hard if the vivid dreams are very, very kind of mild concern, you're not too worried about it, you can do the quantum leap. Otherwise, it's hard. And number three is something I'm getting more and more interested in and believe more and more because of a recent success story and because of reading I've done, etc. And which is mindfulness. We're often in this kind of like doing mode. We're always like, problem solving, doing things, and that's not helpful when you're hyper aroused, because your mind is going in a direction of like trying to solve it, figure it out, and you're like trying things, and you're etc., which just makes you more hyper aroused. Just being aware, awareness, mindfulness, observing your thoughts without judgment, etc. Mindfulness, I think, can really help. And then finally, thought work. Thought work can also help if you can, if you identify that you are hyper-aroused, which is an emotion, or kind of an umbrella term for many emotions, then there's always a thought behind them. For let's say the vivid dreams, that's kind of circumstance. You have vivid dreams that makes you think something is wrong with me, that makes you anxious. Then this is where you work, like something is wrong with me. And again, that's education, or it's like identifying a goal thought and a problem thought and kind of making your way towards that. You check out the playlist on the model where I'm starting to really explore this. So that's another way I think you can get past a hyper arousal and feel better and sleep really, really well. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please leave a comment or drop an email, daniel@insomniainsight.co. And I'll be back with more tomorrow. I'll be here answering questions in Ask Daniel number 40. Look forward to having you back here soon. Until then, take it easy.